So when we're looking at the difference between means, so the difference in averages between groups, oftentimes the examples that we're using are examples where we have all of the data and we're comparing between two groups that are within our data, right? So you have a whole bunch of data on test scores for a whole bunch of people, and you for a whole bunch of students, say, and you want to compare the students that are in a tutoring program versus students who aren't in a tutoring program, and you have all of their data like in your hands slash computer, and then you can go ahead and do that, conditional means table or whatever you want to try to look at the difference there. Now, there's another example of when you might be wanting to compare between groups that it's important to talk about because people talk about it often the same way, but statistically we have to treat it a little differently. And this is what we call an out of sample comparison. Or, in other words, sometimes you have data for a group that's in front of you and you want to compare it to a different group for which you actually don't have their data. So let's say, for example, that you are an administrator at a local college and you have all of the SAT scores for the students that entered as freshmen in a particular year. You have all their SAT scores. And you might wonder, well, how do our SAT scores compare to the SAT scores of students nationwide? Well, you don't have the data for students nationwide. All you have is your own scores. But you probably could go ahead and just go to the internet and look up what is the average for students nationwide. You could figure that out. It's the SAT published by the Educational Testing Service. They publish some descriptive statistics about SAT scores nationwide. So you could go ahead and get that mean. And if you're then going to be looking at the difference between the mean of your students, which you can calculate on your own data, and the data that you just got off of the internet, which again was not actually raw data, it was just the already aggregated information, that would be an out of sample comparison. And you could do it very much the same way that we've done before. You would just take the subtraction there to make a statement about how good your students were doing relative to students nationwide. But it is really important to remember that in this case, you actually don't have all of the data. You only have part of the data and you're comparing it to data elsewhere. We're going to come back to this when we talk about one sample t-test because it's important to remember that this situation is different from the first situation where the two groups you were comparing, you actually had all of their data.